Welcome to another Brutally Honest Review. Hi, I'm Frank Atwood, your host. And today we're going to be looking at the Canon M50. Yeah, that's right. They boxed it up, and you'll notice they talk about the sound quality. They mention the fully articulating flip screen on the side. And they even point out they have dual autofocus on the camera. Unfortunately, they don't have it in 4K mode. They use contrast detection. But right here on the side of the box, they have a microphone. It's a Rode microphone. They give you an SD card, and they even give you your first lens, the 15 to 45. And they tell you on the packaging, oh yeah, it's got a 4K video. See it right here, 4K. Got it nice and gold, 4K. What were you thinking, Canon? I don't understand. I mean, you put out a camera, it's supposed to be for new creators. You targeted new creators. That's why you say this is your Dare to Dream video creator kit. Dare to Dream. I don't understand. You gave us the Rode microphone, which is normally $99. You worked a deal with Rode. You could have gone with Movo and saved yourself some money and made an even better deal for the consumer. And that wasn't in there. That was my 50 mil. I actually left the lens on the camera, but I had bought a 50 for it. And then this is I bought this. This is the Raisup, R-A-E-I-S USB Raisup DC drive cable. So you can put this in there. It's like a dummy battery, and plug it in the wall, and that way you don't have to worry about battery power. So you don't have to worry about running out of power, especially if you're going to use this for streaming, because you can stream with this camera. And then you have the actual camera itself. It's not in the original configuration of the packaging. And here's an ND filter I bought because they don't give you one. Unlike Sony Zv-1, where they have a built-in ND filter. Canon just didn't think you needed it, I guess. Even though they've been making cameras for years, and they know that if you take your camera out in the sun, you've got to have sunglasses on your camera. Otherwise, it's going to blow out your footage and you're not going to be able to see nothing. So like I said, I left this in the configuration that it was. All right. I have the manuals and everything in there. It's pre-packaged. It's all packed up. This is the 15 to 45. It does not do very well in low light settings. It has an f-stop of like 3.5 to 4.5 or something like that. Not very good in low light at all. They do make an 11 to 22 for this camera, but I don't understand why wouldn't you launch this if it's supposed to be a creator's dream with the 11 to 22, so they get that super wide angle. It doesn't make any sense. Or make a native 10 to 18 and get somebody like Casey Neistat to take and market it, and people would have bought it just because he had it and had the 10 to 18. Oh, it's a perfect vlogging camera. Then you could have walked around with a super wide angle because he used the 70D with the 10 to 18. All you had to do was make a native 10 to 18 for this. That would alleviate a lot of the problems such as rolling shutter. This camera has really bad rolling shutter. I've had this camera for a total of 2 years. I've only used it 6 times. 6 times in 2 years. That's not a great ratio. That doesn't sound like someone's daring to dream. It sounds like someone's... well, the only way I can equate it is like, let me put it to you this way. If I was teaching you to play the guitar and I gave you a crappy guitar that not even I could make a good sounding C note on, how soon would it take before you lost interest in learning the guitar? But if I give you a nice guitar, when you make a nice sounding note, now you're interested. Oh, wow, I did it, right? You can do it. This camera has so many limitations. Let me start off with what's good, because there's not very much. A lot of people are getting on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube Shorts, and they're saying, oh, I love this camera, it's my favorite, blah, 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 blah. This camera does not shoot well in low light. You have to have a designated light, like I have here, in order to do anything indoors with it. If you go outside in the bright sunlight, let's face it, nobody's going to get up at golden hour at 7 in the morning or 6:30 and go out and use their camera. If you're getting up that early, you're probably going to work, right? And when you come home after work, you're tired. You're not going to want out, oh, I think I'll run outside while the light's beautiful and use my Canon M50. You're not going to do it. So you're going to need an ND filter, a neutral density filter, all right? Sunglasses for the camera. So when you're outside, you can adjust it. I highly recommend getting a adjustable ND filter, one that's, you can just turn it, you can turn the face of it, and it's like polarized, those shades they had, you know, where you can just turn it and it gets darker and darker. Or like your glasses, right? The transition lenses, you go out in the sun and they just darken. On the variable ND filter, you can turn it and it'll darken depending upon how bright it is. So that way you can get a nice clear image and still see and still create content. So right off the bat, I didn't like the 15 to 45. It's too wide. I know people are saying, yeah, but the Sony Zv-1's a 24 to 70 zoom and it's still too wide. But they do sell an adapter that you can put on it to give you that wide angle look. And if you don't want the wide angle look all the time, you can take it off. That's the nice thing about it. If they had made, they do make an 11 to 22, which is fairly wide for this camera. And it's a native lens, a native EPS lens for this, APS-C camera. Sony sells them, but it's like $300. It's the same as their regular 10 to 18. Why not just, I just don't get it. If you really wanted to sell me on this, you should have put the native 10 to 18, you should have made one, or you should have put the 11 to 22 on this camera when you launched it. Then people would have been happy. I see all kinds of creators, oh, it's got a fully articulating flip screen and you can do that and it's touch and you touch the box and it locks on your face. Yes, it does. It does do that, unless you're in 4K. And you will see a box when you're in 4K, but it's not using the dual pixel autofocus face tracking feature. It doesn't include that in 4K. I'm hoping they do a firmware update. Doesn't really matter to me because this camera is for sale. I'm selling it to a buddy of mine who's going to do gaming and streaming. So it's going to be on a tripod all the time, and he's going to have it locked on him with a designated ring light and a couple other lights probably, and that's it. So it's not really that big of a deal for him. But me, I go outside, I vlog, I do things outdoors. I run a channel called Moving to Maine. That's on my main vlog, Frank Atwood's GoPro Hero Vlog. And this was designed, I wanted to replace my GoPro with this camera, but I can't because it's just, in a couple of words, I hate it. I don't like the fact that I had to buy so much stuff to get this thing going. I bought the external battery thing, so if I want to do stuff like this, but I can't do stuff like this because I didn't have a designated light at the time. You need brighter light. The microphone's okay. It's not, look, it says not for resale because they made a deal with these guys for the package. It's not the greatest mic in the world, but it'll work. It'll give you decent sounding sound quality. I wasn't happy with just the whole setup. The fact that they only made two lenses for this lens, the 15 to 45 and the 11 to 22, and then they leave it up to you to buy third-party lenses. That to me just says, like, you don't care about me. You could have had a whole new generation of Canon fanboys and girls singing your praises. Instead, you make a camera where the 4K is basically worthless. And you say, well, you don't really need 4K. I think you do. Let me show you a little bit of footage. Watch this footage real quick and tell me. All right, I've switched it over to 4K. And as you can see, even with my arm at full length there, there's quite a big crop. That's the thing about this camera. If you're going to shoot in 4K, it has an amazingly big crop to it. It crops in on you quite a bit. So the 11 to 22 will probably do a better job if you want to do vlogging like this. If you're walking down the streets and you want to vlog and talk and stuff, it'd probably give you a much wider angle and you wouldn't have to have the selfie stick two feet out there. It looks kind of silly if you're walking down the street carrying like one of those really long extension poles. And this is in 4K. It's standard IPB 4K, but it's not the full HD one, which is another selection on there. A lot of people were doing reviews on the 4K, and it was using a contrast focusing instead of just the facial auto tracking feature. It was using like a 4K contrast. Like if the light changes, you would go in and out of focus. But this seems to be tracking me. I don't know. Is it going focusing, out of focus, in and out of focus? It's tracking my face. Jello footage. So I put it on the selfie stick. I'm actually holding the tripod feet, so it gives me about 4 feet away from me, I guess, roughly about 4 feet from me. So, so I've got the 10-18 on with the lens hood and the Rode mic that came with this. And so we can do an audio test, which means I need to go to the menu and I need to turn up the sound a little bit. How's it sound? How's it sound? Sound good, sound good, sounds good. All right, so it's not clipping, good. And this is the Rode microphone that came with it, so if it sounds a little tinny, this is the cheaper microphone that Rode makes. It's $99, and as you can see, it's got the little name brand and everything on it. And yeah, this is the Viltrox lens adapter and the 10-18 on it. The Canon, this is the Canon 10-18. I got the JJC UH73C lens hood on it. But this is, if you want to run and gun with it outside, this is the ideal way to set it up. So now you can walk and talk and you know you're capturing good audio. Before I was doing most of the tests without a microphone, but now I have one on there and you can see which microphone it is. And it's the one that came with it. So for a new creator, I'm guessing this would be great unless you have to mess with the audio, which I don't think. Oh, here we go. I'm starting to notice if I don't use a Canon battery, that I begin to have issues with this. It just stopped recording and just shut off. So that's an issue right there. I have a third-party battery in here. I do have the original Canon battery upstairs. If you use a different battery than Canon's, it can shut off on you, and that's not a good thing, especially if you're out in the park capturing videos of your kids, and you get something you don't want to miss, and then all of a sudden, bam, it just cuts off on you. It's done that 3 times now since I've been out here. We're at shutter speed of 140. That's at 150, so it's more natural. I got to change this one. Every time I change it, it keeps, there we go, 150th. There we go. That's at 100, 125, 160, which is what that's set at. So they're basically set at the same. I think the Sony has a little bit sharper colors. This is more muted colors, but they're colorful nonetheless. I like Canon colors. They're nice. I just don't like all the headaches and all the additional things that I had to buy in order to make this the way I wanted it. The Sony, right out of the box, I didn't have to buy any additional things to make it the way I wanted it. And that's part of the reason why I kind of like that. I think Canon could have hit this out of the park with this camera, but instead they chose to take 1 step forward, 2 steps back in terms of giving you functionality and features. And I just, for that reason, I've only used the Canon M50. I've owned it 2 years. I only used it 5 times total. This is the 6th time right now. I can't... I don't know, the rolling shutter thing really threw me for a loop. And that happened on the porch over there early in the morning. I just moved the camera a little bit and the whole picture wobbled like that. And I don't know, maybe I didn't have a fast enough memory card, because they do have really fast memory cards. They cost a lot more, but they're much faster at writing. Maybe that was part of the reason. I'll have to check. But either way, I've got a different memory card on this. Maybe that's fixing part of it. We'll see. But either way, I'm going to sell the Canon M50 because I just don't want it anymore. I have a buddy who wants it, and I'm going to hook him up, give him a really good deal. All right, back to you, Frank. So what'd you think? I mean, seriously, what'd you think? The contrast detection autofocus does not work. If the light changes for any reason, right? You move in and out of the sun, you get a little bit of shade from the trees, and it starts hunting for your face. That's not going to work for creators. And I know a lot of people have said, well, you don't really need 4K to create YouTube videos and blah, 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 blah. That's only for filmmakers and you don't really need it and blah, blah, blah. I beg to differ, okay? I may not be creating short films or documentaries or anything like that, but I do like having 4K. And I'll tell you why. I'm a solo creator, so what I'm doing right now is solo creation. And if I want to punch in, if I shot it in 4K, I can punch in like this, where you see my face up close, and then I can go back to a regular shot. And I do that in post, in my video editor. And I don't lose any resolution because it's been shot in 4K. If you shoot it in just regular 1080p, you will get some pixelation. The pixels will get a little soft, a little blurry, whatever. It doesn't work, okay? So for me not to have access to 4K, that's a deal breaker, all right? And it says on the box 4K, And that's the reason why I bought it, and that's the reason why millions of other people bought it. So basically, I feel like Canon kind of screwed me out of 500 bucks, 500 something bucks. I just can't believe that they would do something like that. Because to me, that's, I mean, you just killed your new user base. Not to mention, you unleash a totally new ecosystem of camera, the APS-C size sensor, and only put out 2 lenses for it. To a whole new, well, they won't know. They don't know anything about cameras. Let's just launch it on them, right? We got to get something out there on this. And you hook up with the native 10 to 18, which I have. You're going to get so much rolling shutter. It's not even funny. I think I even showed that in one of my other videos. To me, that makes no sense. You didn't make a new fan. You burned a bridge and you made a camera that drove me